Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're learning German, you have definitely run into the case system. Well, today we are going to crack the code on two of the biggest ones you'll face, the Akkusativ and the Dativ. Let's make this whole thing simple and clear. Okay, let's jump right into the problem that drives everyone crazy. You learn the sentence, I see the man, and it's ich sehe den Mann. Easy enough. But then you say, I help the man, and all of a sudden it's ich helfe dem Mann. It's still the man, right? So what's the deal? This is probably one of the biggest sticking points for German learners, but I promise you there's a logic to it and we're going to figure it out. So here's our plan for today. We'll start with the why behind this whole puzzle. Then we'll look at the basic changes to the words themselves, cover the grammar triggers that basically make the decision for you, learn how to put it all together, and finally, we'll test what you've learned. So first up, what even is a case? Honestly, the best way to think about it is that every noun gets a specific job or a role to play in the sentence. Is it the one doing the action? Is it the one receiving the action? The case tells you exactly who's who. So let's look at the roles that matter for us today. This right here is the core difference. The accusative is for the direct object. It's the person or thing that is getting hit with the action directly. It answers the question, whom or what. On the other hand, the dative is usually the indirect object. It's the receiver or the beneficiary of the action. It answers the question, to whom. So, akkusativ gets the action, dativ receives the thing. Okay, so understanding the roles is step one. Step two is seeing how the words themselves actually change their spelling. And this is where articles, words like the and a, and pronouns come into play. All right, this table is basically your cheat sheet. Now, nominative is for the subject, the person doing the action. But we're focusing on the other two rows. Take a close look at the accusative and dative rows. You'll see some really important changes happening, especially for masculine words and for all plural words in the dative. Now, to avoid getting totally overwhelmed, let's just zero in on the changes themselves. For masculine, der becomes din in the accusative. In the dative, masculine der and neuter das both become dem. Feminine, die, becomes der, and the plural die becomes den, and you'll often see an extra n on the end of the noun. These are the patterns you really want to lock into your memory. And it's the exact same story with pronouns. Think about it. In English, I becomes me. Well, in German, you've got two versions of me. Mich for accusative and mir for dativ. Same for you. Dich versus dir. So if you see mich, it's answering whom or what. If you see mir, it's answering to whom. Spotting these changes is a huge clue about what's happening in the sentence. Okay, so you get the concepts, and you've seen how the words change, but how do you decide which one to use when you're actually speaking? Well, here's the good news. A lot of the time, you don't actually have to guess. Certain words act like triggers that automatically force you to use a specific case. Lots of verbs that involve a direct action are going to trigger the accusative. Verbs like sehen, to see, kaufen, to buy, or brauchen, to need, they all take a direct object. I mean, you need something, right? In our example, ich frage den Lehrer. Whom are you asking? The teacher. He's the direct object, so it has to be accusative. And then you've got this group of verbs that are just hardwired to the dative case. This is a list you'll pretty much just have to memorize. It includes verbs like helfen, to help, danken, to thank, and gefallen, to be pleasing to. And that's exactly why we say ich helfe dem Lehrer. The verb helfen itself just forces the dative case. Prepositions are another super powerful trigger. This group you see here, durch, für, gegen, ohne, will always be followed by the accusative. No thinking required, no exceptions. If you see the word für, you know the next thing is accusative. Like in das Geschenk ist für dich. The gift is for you. And just like the accusative team, this group of prepositions always triggers the dative. Mit is a classic. You always travel with something in the dative case. For example, ich fahre mit dem Bus. I'm going with the bus. Once you get these lists down, your accuracy is gonna go way up. All right, now for the tricky ones. The two-way prepositions. These guys can take either case, but lucky for us, there's a pretty simple rule. If you're talking about movement towards a destination, answering the question where to, you use accusative. If you're describing a fixed location, answering where at, you use dative. So just think, Akkusativ is for action and movement. Dativ is for a static location. Okay, let's put it all together. How do these cases actually work side by side in the same sentence? This happens all the time, especially when you're talking about giving something to someone. This here is a super common pattern, especially with verbs like to give. Check out the order. First, you've got your subject and verb. Then, right after that, you put the person who receives the item. That's your dative object. And finally, you have the thing that's being given. That's your accusative object. The rule of thumb to remember is person before thing, so dative before accusative. And here it is in action. Ich gebe, I give. Who receives it? Dem Mann, the man, in the dative case. What is being given? Den Schlüssel, the key, in the Akkusativ case. Subject, verb, dative person, accusative thing. It's a nice, clean structure. All right, that was a lot of information. The absolute best way to make it stick is to actually use it. So let's try to fix a couple of really common mistakes. You ready? First one up. Ich helfe den Mann. Think back to those trigger verbs we talked about. What case does the verb helfen always take? I'll give you a second to think. And the answer is dem Mann. Why? Simple. Helfen is a dative verb. It doesn't matter what it feels like it should be in English. In German, the verb's rule is king. Let's try one more. Ich gehe in the kitchen. And here's a hint. Movement. What did we learn about those two-way prepositions when there's movement to a destination? The correct answer is in die Küche. Because you are moving into the kitchen, you're answering that question where to. So the preposition in takes the accusative case. Now, if you were already inside, you'd say, ich bin in der Küche, and that would be dativ. See the difference? So let's boil this all down into a simple checklist you can use anytime. First and most importantly, check for triggers. Is there a verb or a preposition that demands a specific case? That'll solve your problem like 90% of the time. If there are no triggers, then you can fall back on the role of the object. Are you answering whom or what for accusative or to whom for dative? Always check for triggers first. And let's end on this thought. Try not to think of cases as just a bunch of boring grammar rules. They're actually the engine of the sentence. They add all this clarity and they tell the story of who's doing what and to whom it's being done. Keep practicing with that checklist in mind, and I promise it will start to feel like second nature. I hope this helped clear things up. Thanks for watching, and viel Erfolg.